All righty.
There you go. You're on, Miss McCarty.
Fix this. Okay, she's fixing.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
You're on.
All righty. So again, good morning to everyone. And this has been a different month, and I mean, all months are different, but this was a really, really different and difficult month. You know, it started with an intensive and me having like a breakout and a flare up with arthritis, and it's gone downhill ever since. So I do want to thank Misty last week for filling in on the food piece, and she got so many requests, and so I think it's going to be Misty Talks after this. No, but we are going to add Misty, because we have had requests a lot about the food piece, and you know, and like Ash, I mean, like Misty told you, you know, she's not a dietitian, but what she does is she works closely with a dietitian, and we have come up with a food plan. It's not the end all food plan. It is a food plan that people can go on. It's not a diet that you go on so you can go off. It is a way to live. And so Misty has been able to implement everything that we've asked her to do. And you know, she's learned how to take ethnic food and make it all absent food. So anyway, thanks so much, Misty, for taking one of the Tennie Talks. And then my daughters, Kim and Karen, thank the two of you. We have had a lot of response, and I think people love that I love that y'all are my daughters, and I think people love that my daughters were on here. And we're going to do one, the three of us, and I might even try to get Christy to join us, but we want to do one on mothers and daughters, and you know, with the three of us or four of us there. So this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and oh my goodness, has mental health been in our faces you know, the last week or so, or more than that. But anyway, like I said, it's been a difficult month, but I do want to talk about suicide. And some of you have heard me talk about it personally. I don't talk about it all the time, but if it would help one person, I do. You know, suicide does run in families. It does have that hereditary component, and it had it in my family. On my mother's side, my grandfather was constantly killing himself, and he lived at the age at 92, but always thinking about killing himself, getting a plan to kill himself, attempting to kill himself in front of children and grandchildren. And I remember probably my only memory and my last memory of him. I was about 5 and visiting him in Ardmore, Oklahoma. And I don't know why everybody went off and left me there at the house with him by myself. But anyway, he was a sweet little old man. But we were in the kitchen, and he took this, back in the days I had glass Coke bottles, and he took that Coke bottle and a hammer, and he chopped that bottle up, that glass. And then his hands were stiff from arthritis, but he took his hand in a little paper sack, and he raked all of those pieces of glass into that paper sack and very gently folded it down. And he said, come on, everybody called me Black Baby. He said, come on, Black Baby. And we were going down, and we went down out their house, kind of on a slope, and he was going to eat that glass and die, and in front of a 5-year-old. So, you know, his daughters came in, his son came in, they rescued him, they rescued me. But that's just a small part of the, you know, being so hereditary in our particular family. You know, cancer runs in some families, different diseases run in some families, mental illness and suicide ideation and action absolutely runs in ours. My mother was totally obsessed with killing herself. She had a nervous breakdown at age when I was 4 years old, and the rest of my life, my growing up until age 30, my whole focus was on my mother and trying to get her well. She had numerous attempts at suicide. And I did too as a child. Mine started at age 8, and I would take her meds. She always wanted me to lay in the bed with her. I know today that is a form of, of covert sexual abuse. She wanted me to love on her, pat on. Anyway, I won't get into all of that. But she too lived a dark life, and lived to be 87, breathed in and out. She constantly had that wanting to kill herself. And then it came down to me. And then I think that my sister just went straight to mental illness, and she died of mental illness about 8 or 9 months ago in an institution in North Carolina. She refused to ever get any kind of help. So anyway, so at age 8, I was already a little fat girl, and I had that obsession to kill myself. I say today that suicide ideation, actually, as sick as it sounds, it kept me alive until I could get some help. And how that happened, and my eating disorder kept me from killing myself on different occasions. I remember age 8, one morning, walking myself to school, and there's a busy street. It was almost kind of a highway that I had to cross. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. That's also the year that I found God. And so, there's that complexity of, that those scales that balance both ways. But anyway, I was going to walk out in front of a truck and let them kill me. And then I got to thinking what day it was. And this is an absolute true story. And I remembered what was on the menu, what we were having for lunch that day. And I prolonged killing myself so I could go to school and eat lunch, that favorite school meal. So I'm very well acquainted with suicide in more ways than one, and then one of my daughters, Kim, and I had her permission to tell you, she started her journey of many attempts of suicide. I had about 9. I always said I had like a cat with 9 lives. But I want to tell you about the last one, and then I want to get into some material about suicide. And when I tell this, it's always, it's about how little people who kill themselves, how very little they value themselves at the time. It's like we have no value. And it was in the early 90s. I owned a treatment center, and the Attorney General of the United States had come down hard on treatment centers, not us, because we didn't do any marketing, but they'd come down hard on marketing illegal or unethical marketing tactics, and they were closing treatment centers across the country. Just the charter hospitals. I could give you a list. And so treatment people just stopped coming to treatment for, during that time. And when I put in shades, I did not want my husband to help. I was very, I just wanted to be, I don't know if it's arrogance or what, I don't know what it was. But anyway, so we were in a financial bind, and the only one that knew it was my youngest daughter, who was my bookkeeper, and still is. But they had a $1 million insurance policy out on them, $1 million. And in my sick mind, I thought, I can kill myself and they can collect that $1 million. That will solve the problem, the financial problem that shapes. That is how little we think about ourselves when we're in that cycle of thinking about suicide. And some people do kill themselves on the spur of the moment. Some are very methodical about it. Mine was very thought out, methodical. I knew that my family and even Ariel and I had a ticket, but anyway, Garth Brooks was popular then, and I knew they would all be gone for a long time that evening seeing Garth Brooks. And I had accumulated, the doctors said that I had taken enough medicine to kill 2 or 3 people, let alone one. And I wrote a letter, and then I laid down and I went to sleep. And I think it was 2 days later, about 2 days later, I actually came to, really came to, and the horror of the mess that I had made, and on in a treatment center. But none of that matters. When you're in the pain, when you're in the midst of the pain, it's like, or for me, all I could think of was a way out. And another thing is how little I valued my life, as far as not, I mean, I didn't think I'd really be missed. And in some way, that is such a self-centered thing. I mean, it's self-centered that I didn't think I'd be missed, and that, you know, people probably didn't love me anyway, all of that stuff. So anyway, I woke up and across my bed was family. My son and my youngest daughter, my two older daughters, were estranged from us, and they didn't even know about the suicide attempt till years later. But they were on the bed, and then a dear friend from Stuart, Florida was there, and sponsors were there, and a doctor friend of mine from Dallas, who had a very full practice, he was there. They surrounded me with love and care. He stayed with us a week and cooked every meal and fed me every meal. That is love in action. That is love in action. I was here, and I'd gone last week to a dear friend in Tennessee to be with her and her family. And what she was saying, she spoke somewhere and she said, it's one thing to say you care, and it's another thing to suit up, take the action, and show it. Not everybody can go. Not everybody could go. But I knew when I heard the message of this dear friend of mine and that her mother passed away, I mean, we just started gathering up stuff and got in the car. I knew I had to go to her, and we stayed 8 days. And I had been ill, very, very ill for this. But anyway, I was better. So I'm going to get back to what happened on this dark place. I had called on a young woman. I was in Dallas area, in Argyle, Texas, was a really neat treatment center. And on my way home, I went up there north of Dallas to meet the director. I'd heard that she was a wonderful in the field, and that she was forward thinking and all. So I wanted to meet this young woman. And I went by and introduced myself, and it got around to, they were being hit hard because they took Medicare. Nearly everything was frozen in the addiction field, and she felt so responsible for everything. And she killed herself about a week after our visit. And so it wasn't just me. We were all kind of like, it was kind of like the Depression when people were jumping out of the windows. So anyway, I knew mine was methodical. This last serious attempt was very thought out, very methodical, step by step. And but before I get any farther, I want to tell you, God has removed that from my brain. I lived with suicide ideation all of my life. It's no longer in my brain. By my own devices, I could not do anything about it. And I did every kind of therapy work you can imagine. But what it was for me, it was a way out. As a little kid, I could say I could survive whatever my dad's doing today, because after all, I'm going to kill myself tonight, or I'm going to kill myself in the morning. It would help me get past what was happening. As sick as that sounds, suicide, or the thought of suicide, kept me alive. I know it sounds sick, but anyway, that's what it did for me for a long time. And I had a group of people around me that they were very kind to me. They were very loving to me, and they did not BS with me. They didn't. They got my attention, and they got me up out of that bed. And it was hard physically and all. And I still don't know how I did this, but I had been asked to speak in San Diego at something. And when you get, as a treatment center, when you get involved and you commit to doing something at a big conference, it's very noticeable if you don't show up. And it is very, I mean, you talk about unethical, and your name is just mud. I mean, you'll probably never get asked to speak again if you don't show up. So our clinical director at the time took over and she said, you are going to San Diego. And I said, oh no, no way. And she cussed a little bit and she said, yes, you are. And they got me up. It was like 2 or 3 days later, and they got me packed. They got me, fluffed up, looking pretty good, and someone flew with me. And I went, and and what I got out of that, I don't know what I gave, but what I got out of that is that's why we have to be careful of where we show up and pay attention to the people that's put in our lives. I do have ADD, and it's very hard for me to go to a workshop of any sort and sit there long enough to pay attention to get the point of, because I'm all over the place. But I went into a young woman's workshop, and I want to call her out. Her name is Heather Hayes. She's very known in the field. She's very honored in the field. She is one of the top dogs in this field. But I met her when she was just a little puppy in the field, But she is the only person that I have ever sat through their workshop and sat at the edge of my chair and listened to every word she said. And I knew that she was going to be someone that I could learn from. So if I gave anything or not to anybody else, I don't know, but that's the nugget that I received, was meeting Heather Hayes and watching her through the years, the work that she has done in the field of addiction. So I'm just telling you that the shame that I carried about doing that, attempting suicide, and I was serious, folks. I was serious about it. And I really wasn't angry about it not being completed, because I went through what they call that tunnel, and I saw the light, and I saw it and kept trying to get there. And I kept hearing, it's not time, go back, go back, go back. So I did. I'm glad I did. I would have missed my grandchildren. I would have missed all of you. I would have missed my great grandchildren. I would have missed all the people I've had the privilege of sharing with and all. And so God had more work for me to do. And but it was a lot of shame, and it took me a while to get off my own back about that. So I wanted to tell you about that. And some people are, like I said, it's methodical. They set out with a plan and they get it all lined up. Some do it on the spur of the moment. Some, will do it like out of rage. Something happens, they rage, and then they cannot sit with the feelings. And that's really what we talk about. That's what we do here at Shades, is teach people how to deal with their feelings. So I want to give you some little ideas about, not little, they're pretty big. I'll tell you one thing. People who are thinking about suicide, what they want and what they need is for people to notice the pain they're in. Most of us would never report it. We go on with our life like I did. I mean, I'd gone to see my mother that day. I had made provisions for her that she, they could draw out of my account to take care of my mother. I did a lot of prep work. So I had a lot of shame about that. So what I want to talk about is maybe some things that you can look for in friends, and also some things you can look for in your own life. God made us to live in community. He did not make us to live on an island by ourselves in that isolation. And that's one of the things that top things. If you have a friend that is normally, gets out and can be with people and are social and all, and then all of a sudden it stops and they get in that house and they become a recluse, those are the ones that you need to pay attention to. And sometimes, yes, we treat codependency. Yes, I believe in it, absolutely. But in times like this, mind their business. Their business is your business. Intervene. Because you absolutely can save someone's life. So things that, that we recommend for people to do, I mean, as family members or friends, what we, for what to look for and what to watch for is if you see somebody that's really down and it's not their usual self in whatever way, ask the question. Don't be shy. Ask the question. Have you or are you thinking about killing yourself? Maybe they would have shared some dark moment of their life. Ask the question. That's where I say barge in to where you're not invited. If you have a friend that you're seeing go down, ask and say it out loud. Are you thinking about killing yourself? That will create an opening, and hopefully they will talk with you about it. But there's not going to be any talking if you don't make the entry, the entry point. So ask them out blank. Do you want to kill yourself? Do you want help? And, one of the things, and we have done this with a few clients and with my own daughter, and this is not easy. Take the action that you can take. I won't go into her story, but, my daughter, like 20 years ago, 30, I can't remember when, was at one of her lowest bottoms and was threatening suicide. And went to the big AA meeting on a Saturday night, and she had a gun waving around, and a dear friend of mine called, and she said, Tennie, I hate to tell you this, but she told me that Kim was there threatening to kill herself, and Kim's plan was if she was called on, she was going to get up and put the gun to her head and say, this is what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. And she was going to kill herself. So many of you have heard the story, but when we're in, I don't care how much we know. I don't care if you're a professional, not a professional, minister, whatever, you can know everything that there is to know. But when it comes down to your own loved ones, it's like for me, I didn't know where to start. And then I thought, suicide prevention. So I called them. And the gentleman that answered the phone, his name was Kevin. And I'll be eternally grateful for him. And I got to help train him in the alcoholism field. And he was doing some of his service work to get hours working on the hotline. And I said, treat me like you would anyone else, because I don't know anything to do with my daughter that is threatening suicide. So she walked me through it. And what we did is, you have to have a deputy, a female deputy. You've got to have, a judge or a JP. Anyway, my husband and I got willing to commit her. And that night when, and we had friends watching her after she left the open door, anyway, she lived in a small apartment on an alley. And so we all gathered out there. And it's about maybe 2 o'clock in the morning by then. But all of the people that needed to be involved, the JP, the sheriff's department, and then our AA friends and our Al-Anon friends, when you embark on the journey of a 12-step journey, you never have to go through anything alone ever again unless you choose to. We didn't call those people and say, will you come? One person knew, the one that called me from the open door, and she knew. So anyway, they just got on the hotline and, we had people there backing us up and supporting us. And what we were going to do was commit her to state hospital. And the state hospital in our area at that time, I don't know anything about it now, very little. I have taken a client or two over there, but it wasn't the best hospital in the world. Her grandfather had died there, died in that same mental institution from mental illness, trying to kill himself. Her grandfather on her father's side. My mother, I had put her there 12 or 13 times. And so, it was like a family affair. And that was hard to do, to sign a piece of paper to commit my daughter to a mental hospital. And I knew the stigma that it would bring, but I didn't care. I wanted her safe. My husband, who loved and adored him, he was favorite. I mean, not favorite, but they were so much alike. And anyway, the bottom line, he wouldn't sign the paper. And I said, give me that paper, I'll sign it, but he wouldn't join me on that. And that was his journey, not mine. So that's what happened. And usually when you commit someone to a state hospital, you get, I mean, if you get 72 hours, my idea was if she'd go there, they'd keep her 72 hours, do an evaluation, put her on some drugs and send her back to Abilene. That's not what happened. I thank God when you really take appropriate action, God shows up. And what happened was God showed up. And what happened every time my daughter would go before the judge to get for a discharge review, they'd give her more time. She wound up staying there about 90 days. She was very angry at me, and her father would go see her on a regular basis, and she would just say, keep the B, you can cut the rest of it, keep that, well, I'll say it, keep that bitch away from me. If she comes close to me, I'm killing the bitch. So I didn't see Kim for a couple of years. And I didn't care. I care, but if she can be safe, that's all I want. So I'm just telling you this, that I've been on all sides of this disease and this suicide ideation and action. And this, I've already told part of the story, but I will say the last time she went to treatment, she reports that suicide ideation has been removed from her brain. I think it's much like any addiction. It goes through an addiction cycle, suicide does. It starts with something happens. Somebody does us wrong, something happens. You know, we get upset, we get mad, we get desperate, we are in fear, whatever that is. And so, you know, we have all of those feelings going. And then if we're addicts, we're already using something to ease the pain. But you go around that cycle, that suicide cycle, after the feelings come up, it's horrible and you want a way out. And so this is when the way out is, and it's logical. Those of us that are victims of suicide ideation or action, it's very, very, very real. It's not like a choice. So with, that has been that suicide ideation has not only been removed from my brain, but from Kim's brain. And for her, she couldn't see me for 2 years. And I was sad, but if she could live, I'd be all right. I never saw her again. If she could live any kind of a happy life. And for those that know her, she is flourishing beyond any words. She's not the same person I've ever known. And I've known her all her life. So where we went into Tennessee, Kim went with me because I had gotten sick down in Florida. And I spent a couple of days in the hospital down there, and I knew I couldn't fly, but I knew I had to go to my friend. So Kim took me. That's a miracle, to sit in a car, 11 hours one way, 11 hours back with my daughter. And it was wonderful. I can't describe the healing that took place in that car and the week, 7 or 8 days that we stayed at our friends. I think it just brought us closer together, and I could just look at Kim and she'd look at me because we remembered the times that she tried to kill herself and times I tried to kill myself. So I'm going to give you some things that you can do to prevent suicide. One thing, ask the right question. Are you suicidal? See, people hate to admit it because the next thing they know is being committed to an institution, particularly if you admit it to a healthcare professional. So, but ask anyone. Ask it anyway. Ask the question. Are you in a dangerous place right now? And don't leave them, regardless. If they say, I want to be by myself, don't honor that. This is where you can take codependency to the max. You really get in there and stay. This is what I would have needed. But when you're in that place, you can't ask for help. You can't. I couldn't. So ask the right question. And then because what that does, when you start asking the right question, it shows that you care, and that's what they need to hear, that heart language. And what will happen is that it gives a space, it creates an opening to have conversation about suicide. This is such a under the rug, swept under the rug. No one wants to talk about it. And if they talk about it, it's in whispers. It needs to be out loud. It needs to be talked about out loud. So people can, that if when anyone has those thoughts, of killing themselves, we need to speak this stuff out loud. And because you never know, who would have ever thought that, the way my life looked pretty good on the outside. And no one except my youngest daughter, and I knew the shape that Shades was in at that time. And I had so much guilt about putting it on my youngest daughter. But anyway, I won't linger there anymore because we don't live there anymore. We don't. And so ask and then listen. Have a listening for people. Have a listening. It's one thing to hear somebody. It's another thing to have a listening. And what that means is you sit in, sometimes you sit in silence. Sometimes silence is more really meaningful, things that are said in silence, but just sit by them, hold their hand. And if you can get them to start talking, listen to them and stay by their side, stay by their side. And then, with cell phones, you can call and get help, do those three things. If you have a family member, a friend, a loved one that you know or suspect might kill themselves or think about killing themselves, those are some things that you can do. And the thing about it is they may be like Kim. She didn't speak to me for 2 years. She was so mad at me and I didn't care. I cared, but I didn't care, because what happens is I knew that I had done what I knew that I had to do. I did it. Was it easy? No, it wasn't. And, when they got ready to discharge her, they called us, and the only two places that they recommended for discharge were to come back to Abilene and a mental health halfway house or to our house. And of course, my husband said, "Oh, she can come back." And I said, "No, she can't. No, she cannot come back in this house. She can't. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot." And so that option was taken off the table. So the option was come back to Abilene and go through a mental health halfway house. When people who have addictions, I can't remember the percentage exactly, but it's a high percentage of addicts and alcoholics who do kill themselves. There is a 37%, I think, of eating disorder people who do kill themselves, who literally actually carry it out, and so there is addictions certainly doesn't cause that ideation. It's the low self-esteem, the low, just that feeling of no damn goodness. That's, excuse my language, but that's what it is. When you're in that, you don't feel like you're worth anyone, that your value goes so far down. And so I'm going to get past all that in a minute. So let's talk about, as you watch yourself and other people, what sometimes can trigger suicide thoughts. One of the things that it is, if you lose a loved one in death, very close to someone, so a loss of a family member in death, because you can't bring them back. You can't bring them back. And a lot of times when a family member, when they lose someone, a father or mother, maybe they're already on shaky grounds with their feelings. And the minute that happens, they really go down so deep that a lot of times it's hard to help bring them back. But anyway, death of a family member is a big one that people kill themselves over. Another thing is a breakup of a relationship. this is where we're so big on working with people on love avoidance and love addiction and sex addiction, because when you put your life, your will in your life in the hands of someone you think loves you, and then they decide they don't, and they tell you, and you have to go through that breakup. Many people break up, there's songs written about it and stories written about it, and, about how they were just willing to give up and die because, their partner didn't want them anymore. So a breakup of a relationship. If you have a friend that's in the middle of a divorce or whatever, stay close to them. That's when you move in close. Stay with them close. Do those three things that I talked about. And then without this, anyway, it's self-esteem goes so far down. There is no, it can't even register on the meter. There's no self-esteem with a person who is wanting to kill themselves. I'll tell you, and I can't speak for everyone that has attempted suicide, as particularly as many times as I have. I don't know about other people, but I wasn't killing myself over them. I was killing myself for them. And that is so sick that, that I'd leave them with $1 million and they could, anyway, no more bills to pay, all of that. And so that low self-esteem, we think so little of ourselves when we're in the midst of that wanting to kill ourselves. Watch for children also. There is a really a high rate of children who are, committing suicide. And I'm going to say this because there's not even kids on here, but if you're a parent, you best know what they're getting into on those internets, because they will teach them how to kill themselves, and do it on the screen, and know what your kids are doing. If that means locking that computer up, lock it up, and I don't care what. Well, all my friends have a phone, all my friends have a computer, yeah, computers are good. It's a good source of information, good contact with, friends and family, and that's what it was designed for. So, but they'll get on there and find different ways to kill themselves, and they will help each other kill themselves. This is the sad part. They will. So know what your kids are doing. You don't, and I know you can't every single solitary day, but pay attention. And then, so. So I can't read this next one, so that's all right. All right, what they do then is they absolutely bow down to that low self-esteem. They honor the low self-esteem. And it's like, I'm not good enough to live on the face of the earth. And so this is where we must help build people up. And then another thing is to watch for is if you're around somebody that is normally cheerful and those feelings change, and maybe they don't have a mental diagnosis, maybe they do. And particularly if they do, you watch close. But really pay attention, because that feelings of worthlessness, just pay attention to that. And there's small things that you can do, small things. And it's not like you have to go and have a counseling session with him. If you're a counselor or whatever, it doesn't mean that. If you're dealing with a friend, say, let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's go ride around. I live in a small town called Buffalo Gap, and I have done this myself, and I've asked other people, invited other people when they're in a bad place. Let's just go out to Tuscola and ride around. Just take a ride. Let's take a scenic drive. Anything to switch that brain chemistry for a moment. And then I can't say it enough, these in the pandemic, this has hurt everyone, but I can't stress it enough, is this financial setbacks, because a lot of people, their self-esteem, their self-worth is all tied up in their things, I mean, I was with a dear friend last week, and her dear boyfriend is from Europe. And oh, he's a lovely man. I got to know him from the heart. And he was telling me, he said, you Americans have too much. Y'all have so much. You have so much. And, you know, we do. And then well, most of us do. And then that fear of losing, you know, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about the fear. That's what is the, you know, bottom line for most any problem is fear. It's not in the big book. It's in the 12 and 12. Fear of losing what we already have, or fear of not getting what we think we deserve. And heaven forbid if we ever get what we deserve. But, you know, it's those two things. Fear, it's fear driven. Suicide is. And then, so our brains are not the same. Each person has a different makeup in their brain. Don't judge yours by someone else's or someone else's by yours. Don't question. Well, didn't they even love their family? Why would they do that to their family? Why would they do that to so and so and so and so and so? That's not your question to ask. We can't ask that question. Because we do not know what's going on inside of another person's brain. We don't know what's driving that low self-esteem and, you know, and that feeling of worthlessness. I went to a workshop many years ago, 40 years ago, a man that's from Talbert's Treatment Center in Atlanta, and he gave me a piece of information. He said that addicts suffer from the feelings of no damn goodness. No damn goodness. Think about that. And that no damn goodness is usually set up in childhood. So I'm going to close with this in just a minute, in that people who have, say, when I had that last suicide attempt, yeah, I've gone and got treatment. I mean, training, and I got treatment for my, no, I hadn't. I don't know. But anyway, yes, I'd gotten treatment for my eating disorder. But at that time, I wasn't seeing a therapist because I was in good shape. I mean, that is just so, it's irrational. So don't assume that anyone's killing themselves over you. Don't put yourself in that position, because if you do, what you're going to wind up with is survivor's guilt. You know, what happened? And, you know, and it is a natural thing. All last week, I heard different ones saying, well, if I had been here, had I got in earlier, had I done this or done that or done something else, it wouldn't have changed. When a person gets ready, really ready and committed to killing themselves, that's why you need to stay with them. Don't leave their side. And so with that, just know that that our brains are all different, and not everyone. You think, you know, this is about mental illness awareness month. There's research that has proven this, that there are people who commit suicide that have not had a diagnosable, and they haven't been diagnosed with a mental illness, you know, but it is all of these factors that go into it. And the brain says, get yourself out of pain, help those around you, you know, by getting out of their way. And, you know, it's just, there's no rhyme or reason to it, but don't judge one person. And I have a tendency sometimes kind of do blanket coverage, but they can all look so different. You know, my dear friend Misty is involved with a huge churches, I mean, all over the world. And here is, you know, I've known Misty almost 8 years, and there's been numerous people in these huge churches that have killed themselves. And, you know, in my later years, preachers' wives, song directors' wives, preachers themselves. So in my later fading years, I had already decided to make my work now, I mean, not that I'm carrying a banner or anything, but in whatever way I can, I want to work with churches. I want to work with pastors. I want, and not go in there and, anyway, my goal is to educate them in addictions, educate them in eating disorders if they're open, educate them, and then talk about mental illness. Get the mental illness, people will sit in church and, pray through, you just have to pray through this, God's going to heal you. Yes, at the end of the day, that is the solution. But there's a lot of work on our part before we get to, God has the power to zap us well. He can just say, okay, over and done. And we would have missed the lessons. He's not going to do it for us. What I tell clients is, do this hard work, do the work around your past, do the work of what you're carrying around, any kind of unresolved conflict, do the work around it. That is where the people that I've known and heard about have never done. And talk therapy has its place. I'm not putting down talk therapy, but people can stay in a therapist's office for 10 friggin' years, every Wednesday at whatever time for 10 years, 15 years, and never have any movement, never get, and never, and maybe the therapist, and I'm not down in therapists, I love them, I'm in the business and all that. There's a lot of wonderful therapists there, but we're good. Those of us that want to kill ourselves, we're good. We are good at hiding our feelings and living a separate life in our head, and if I can just say one thing, like we were coming back from a wedding down there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My ADD is showing up, and I'm giving you more details if you want. But anyway, we were coming back from a trip and heard on the way back that there's this young woman and had a beautiful family, husband, minister of a large church, and but she had been suffering from depression. She'd been suffering from anxiety, but she, didn't feel like that she could really go to the church and talk about it. She did talk with her husband, but he couldn't help her. He didn't know. They got home one Sunday, and it's probably 6 months ago. I got home from church. Kids changed their clothes. She fed them. Her husband was out kind of doing some things in the yard, and she went out and kissed him bye. I don't know if she said anything, but she kissed him, and she went upstairs and she shot herself. There's no rhyme or reason to that. No rhyme or reason. And it has left that community beyond words. It's left her family, her children. But when that pain, that emotional pain gets so bad, like I said, that is like a way out. That is the only way out that we can see, those of us that have had that suicide ideation. So, like I said, everybody sees things different, and pay attention to your friends. If they're normally, happy, joyous, and free, and then all of a sudden they drop out of meetings, they drop off the face of the earth, they get, their feelings change, everything changes. Keep in touch with people. I believe this, that God puts us in each other's lives for a purpose. I don't think it just happens. When someone is put in our lives, the purpose of them being there is for us to learn from each other. And the minute we get those lessons learned, sometimes they're moved out of our life and we never see them again. Sometimes they leave years later and then they'll come back, or they stay and never leave, and they both began to work on themselves, because unhealthy people, sickness seeks at some level and health seeks at some level. So if you're married to someone that has suicide ideation, it's about getting help for yourself too, getting help for yourself, and stay close. Ask the question, are you wanting to kill yourself? And like I said, people are afraid to say that. One thing for the stigma, one thing, when they're in that, I want you to hear me. I'm being bossy. When you're in that, you don't want an interruption. You don't want anybody to interrupt that thought pattern, because you've got your plan and you're all set. And so, it's about, like I said, it's about also sticking with them, being with them until those black moods pass. And, who knows, you might lose a friend over it. They may not want you to be there. It doesn't matter. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. I know last week when I heard a friend of mine had some tragic things to happen in their family. I just come back from Florida, hadn't it completely unpacked. And I told Kim, I said, will you drive me to Tennessee? And she said, of course. And she said, well, have you called her? Is it okay for us to go? And I said, I don't care. I'll call her on the way. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going. She needs us. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, I was exactly where I needed to be. And suit up and show up for other people. Suit up and show up. And those of you in recovery from codependency, when you're marching in where you're not invited, the difference between that and, getting yourself inside a person's life that where they can hear you and feel your love. That's what they need, is to feel your love, and where they can get another day of, a lot of times when I say my claims, I'm recovering from suicide ideation and action, because it goes through that addiction cycle. You have the feelings, something happens, somebody does something wrong, some of these things happen, the feelings are very bad, and it moves you along. Your brain remembers the sense of ease and comfort. It has a thought that, I know how you can get past this, kill yourself. And so you keep going on that cycle, and then you take the action to kill yourself. And if you don't die from it, you come back over here on this other side. And when you get down here at the end and you realize, hey, I'm still alive, it didn't work. That's God's gift to you. That is God's gift to you. When God, literally, I heard a voice, your work is not over. It is. And so be gentle with yourselves, be gentle with others, have compassion. Heard a wonderful talk down at Florida from a wonderful woman that's one of my new best friends, and she taught on compassion and grace. And I'll say this, there is a wonderful organization for women. It's called She Recovers. In fact, one of the co-founders is on the meeting, and we can't have too much support. This organization does not replace AA or NA or OA or any of the A's. It doesn't. They embrace every modality, but they're also, encompass. They bring in everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to the table. Everyone. I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to close. In that, at the memorial service for our friend, there was a Nobel Prize winner that was there speaking on a video, and was talking about this woman, how wonderful she was and what she had meant to him. And he said he was at a conference, didn't know anybody, and he was shy. A lot of people are. I'm very shy. People would be surprised sometimes how shy I am. But I've overcome so much of it with God's help. But anyway, he said the sweetest 4 words that he'd ever seen. He was there. He didn't know anybody. They didn't know he was a Nobel Prize winner. You don't wear it around and have a, flag. I'm a Nobel Prize winner. But he happened to know her, and he was like, sort of, just really was enjoying soaking up, getting to meet her. And when the break was over, she said 4 words to him: come sit with me. Come sit with me. If you don't hear anything else, I hope you hear to tell your friends, your family, come sit with me. Come sit with me. And, particularly when you see them on the path going down. So it's been my pleasure to be here with y'all. I have missed every one of you, but you have been in good hands. And I'm going to open it up. any questions, comments. I think I just used up all the time, but I've haven't been here for a while, so I had to give you the full load. So anyone have anything, any questions to ask or comments or anything? I'm going to ask my new best friend then. Robin, you have anything?
Well, I was just typing a little thank you for inviting me to join. You know, I had the honor of being around you over this tragic situation, and I'm just so thankful that you just got in the car and came, which from everything I know about you from our mutual friend, that is what I would have expected, no less from you. But you and Kim really brought a light to more people than you realized while you were here. As a therapist, you know, sometimes it's hard to discern those people who have addictive suicidal ideation and those who are serious at the moment. And of course, anyone who has the addictive suicidal ideation can become serious at the moment. So I really appreciate all that you had to say, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Definitely will be back. And I just want you to know I really appreciate you.
And invite anyone else that's not want to join. This is just for free and for fun. This is just something that we started. They had the idea, and we started during the pandemic. We were going to do 2 or 3, and we've been doing one every Wednesday. And I want to have some of the staff, Misty, and we're going to do different things. And so thanks for being on here. Look forward to seeing you next week, Robin. All right, who's next?
You know what's going to happen if you don't speak up? She's going to call on you.
Okay, Megan. I'll go.
Lucy has her hand up.
Okay, Megan and then Lucy.
Okay, no, well, Lucy can go. I knew you were going to call on me, Minnie. Well, so much resonates, and thank you for this topic. And it was really good to see you last week too. It's so tough because I, like you, grew up with my mom threatening suicide all the time. And it was my job to keep her from doing it. And so I think one of the things that becomes really difficult is to hear someone talk about it so much. And I remember when I first got to Shades, and I had a plan, and I remember you saying to my family that no one knew, and that was the first time my family heard that I would have done it and that I had a plan, because I was one who didn't talk about it. And so I think there's just so many different kinds, and I guess that's something I'm working through still as I continue to work through things with my mom, is hearing it so much. And just feeling some anger about it, because I would have done it, and she threatens it as a tool. So I think that's such a bigger thing, but it's tough to hear it all the time and then to see someone follow through with it.
Yes, it is. Yes,
And you saved my life, so thank you.
Oh, I was the messenger. God's the answer. Good to see you last week. Love you. Thank you, Megan. Lucy.
And then Dawn.
And then
Rock
Dawn.
on.
I am new to this group. My sister-in-law sent me the link this morning. My middle son attempted suicide. I don't know. My timing's a little screwed up. Maybe a couple of weeks, 2 days after my mother died. He is an alcoholic and has been to a couple of different treatment centers. And when he relapses, that's where he goes. He goes relapse, binge, mental health crisis. And he had told me that he had suicidal ideations and but that he would never ever follow through. And of course, he hit a bad bottom on a Saturday night and took 50 pills, and he survived it. So I think one of the things I'm struggling with is, talking about the codependent side of addiction, and having really strong boundaries around that, because I've been in Al-Anon for, I don't know, 20 plus years, but then also trying to have compassion for the suicidal side.
Yes.
So I'm working hard to find a balance there.
Well, thanks, Lucy. It's good to have you. And my condolences for your mom. And also, I'm very glad your son survived. And hope you'll join us. And in 20 years of Al-Anon, you've got a lot to share. You could help us too. So tell other people if you enjoy this. We just want to, I always say, if it helps one person, one person gets helped, the rest of you can just take a nap and go to sleep. But there's we just do these talks, and they do come from the heart, and it is just whatever people need. Take what you can use and leave the rest. So Miss Dawn.
Thank you so much. And you just said it right. I mean, your talk just came right from your heart and surely landed hard in mine. So thank you. Thank you for recovering out loud. There's so much stigma around mental illness, and this month is an opportunity for us all to share about it. And there's so much stigma and shame around suicide. The women in our community, and she recovers, so many of them have a suicide story, whether it's their own or somebody in their family. And so I attempted suicide 3 times between the time I was 15 and 20. And each and every time I was like in a blackout and had no recollection. And I mean, when I tell the story, sometimes it sounds like I'm making light of it, but literally one of the times, the last thing I remembered before I woke up 3 days later was that I'd got a bad haircut. And it was just so outrageous the way my thinking went when I was completely loaded on substances. And I know people in my life who have completed suicide. And I have a sense for them as well, that they knew not what they were doing. It was just so, I don't know. It's like we have to do the work, Tennie. I'd love to have more conversations about the need to do the work, because there's so many people in recovery these days that are staying away from 12 steps, and that's okay for them, but need another roadmap. And so I already was messaging Cam and said, where's Tennie's book on the work? But anyway, I just love being here. I loved hearing your voice and knowing that Misty's sitting beside you. And can't wait to meet your daughter, Kim. And so thank you both for recovering out loud. It's so important, and you've just touched so many people.
Thank you. And you've got a good organization going there. And one of the things, well, I guess I forgot one of the things, but anyway, it kind of slipped through my brain. That happens these days, but there's something I was going to say. I'll come back to Wanda, do you have anything?
I can't think of anything.
Wise Wanda?
Yes, Tennie, I can't think of anything to add to what you have said, but I just want to thank you for your being so on the leading edge of this, and especially about young people and about the religion, about people with high spiritual knowledge. I appreciate you really talking about it, because hardly anybody does, and in churches that I know about, and it's important. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Wanda. Yeah, we have got to bring mental illness on the same level as physical health. I mean, there's no difference in the stigma over here. I heard somebody say about about going crazy or whatever, and that's our fear, and we don't want to act crazy or look crazy in front of other people. But when you're thinking about killing yourself, that's pretty crazy. Next step thinking. But this is why, and I have not wanted to do this. I had thought for several years that I might start a suicide, prevention group. And I don't know, I've never really felt led to do that for whatever reason. And I'll tell you the reason is I don't want to give people, and this sounds very egotistical, but I don't want to give people an easy way out to go to a group and just sit around a group and rehash the problem. The work that we do here is, and I think I mentioned this, one of the men who trained me in the alcoholism field, they were, African-American Black men, and Mr. Lewis was tall, he'd had a horrendous bad life, but anyway, he helped me so much in that. And this was before the Claudia Blacks. This was before anyone was saying anything about adult children of alcoholics. What Mr. Lewis said was, you've got to take them back to the child. You've got to take them back to their childhood, because there's something back there. There's something back there that has been put in their brain, and then they have formed an agreement with whatever's been put in their brain of that not being good enough. And he loved the work that we did, that we do here. And, they didn't know how to do it. You have to be trained to do it. You have to be trained to do the type of work that we do. And because if you're not, in some ways you can do more harm than good. Because when people really kind of get into that place, that dark place, it's like you have to go in there with them. You have to go in there with them and stay with them and let them know that they're not going to die with the pain. It's the pain that they do not want to have. But pain alone is the best teacher that we have. Pain. It motivates us to bring about change. So, TJ. Good morning.
Good morning. I had raised my hand and took it down a couple of times, but I cannot let this opportunity pass. But to ask you, do you know that you saved my life?
I just knew that morning you're just cute, precious, and darling, and sweet, and no one likes to confront TJ, but I knew that morning I had to get pretty tough with you. And I knew that I wasn't going to let you go out that door without, and when it comes down to, and I know Kellen's going to jump a cartwheel, but when it comes down to helping save a person's life, I don't give a flip if I have a release of information. If they walk out our doors with that suicide ideation, if they discharge themselves, their family will be connected, so it's really all a God deal. Kim and I were talking, and some friends that while we were gone, because we did a 2 hour, about an hour and a half grief session last week in this person's friend's home. That's the thing, when you start taking care of yourself, when you're in a bad place, you know what to do, So thank you for the compliment, but it is God's work. And when I go into a room, and the way I was trained, and I met not met him, I've known him for years, Ted, I trained, he was one of the trainers where I went up in South Dakota with Sharon Lysander Cruz. And, he was in the group last week when we were working. And anyway, and here I am going to be bragging on myself. But anyway, when you have a teacher and you look up to a teacher, and I looked up to him. And after we got through doing the work, he found me. I was in the kitchen getting water, and he came up and he hugged me and just thanked me. And anyway, he said, more people need to learn how to do this work, because that is it. It's that getting that core pain out. And so I hear that I saved your life, but it's a God deal. God put it in my brain and opened my mouth. So I'm not taking any credit to everybody, but and what we get to see is a woman in good recovery. And, you know, and that's all we're after. All we hope for is to make a difference and an inroad into the disease, whether it be, you know, suicide ideation or any addiction or anything. So thanks, TJ, for sharing. And I say this, I cannot speak anywhere hardly without mentioning Dr. Judy Hollis. She saved my life. She hates for me to say that. And I said, I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway, because God working through her. I mean, I'd been to therapists and counselors and dietitians and psychiatrists, and no one told me the truth. Maybe they didn't know the truth. Maybe they didn't know what to tell me. But Hollis did. And she didn't deliver the message very nice. She was not very nice to me. But the good news is we've become good friends over the years. And she said, I just knew with your rage and anger, if I didn't take you there, that it was going to take the rage and the anger to push through, you know, all of that hurt and pain of the past. So anyway, remember, we still do a 4-day intensive, and what that is, it's 4.5 days. And what that is we work on the core pain. We keep it small. I don't like to have over 6 people, 4 to 6 people, because we work, and those that you have done, you know, each one, the work is done in the group, but then each one has, you know, we work with each one 2-3 hours. And so, you know, what some clients have jokingly said that they leave their crap in Buffalo Gap. And sometimes people have to come back and peel off another layer and another layer. There's no shame in this, because if you had any other kind of disease and you had a relapse or one out of you know, maybe you'd been in remission, went out of remission, I mean, you wouldn't feel guilty to go back to the doctor. You'd get there as quick as you could. When we can get mental illness, people looking at mental illness that way, like, oh, I'm kind of slipping backwards. I need to go do a piece of work. I need to go to Shades. There are good therapists out there. Do not hear me down but make sure that they have been trained with people that really can. You know, the issues live in our tissues. They live in the very tissues of our bodies. We carry all of that old stuff. And the kind of work we do is to help release that old toxins. That's what it is. It's toxins. And it's that old stuff that tells us you're not good enough. You're not good enough to be here on the face of the earth. So I want to declare all of you good enough. We're all good enough. We all matter. You matter. And I matter today. We all matter. And it's just been my pleasure to get to be with you. I have missed you folks and heard a great talk from George last night. I love this. When I asked George, would you be willing to tell your story on the alumni meeting? He didn't hesitate. I hardly got it out of my mouth. Sure, I would. I'd be willing to. But I will tell you, he comes from a legacy that is beyond all legacies. His sponsor and grand sponsor and all, they are literally the cream of the crop. And what they taught him is one thing, and that's something that I failed to mention on here, is service work. If you're thinking about killing yourself, go help somebody else. I forgot about that. If you're thinking about killing yourself, or you know that you have a teenager or a friend, get them involved in something, anything to divert that brain chemistry down that pathway of I'm going to kill myself. So it's been my pleasure again to be with you again. Thank you, George. And we need a speaker for next week. And maybe they haven't. But anyway, if you'd like to speak, just let us know sometime. All righty. And Megan?
Yes, I just want to say one thing. So, you know, you've spoken with Emily, our therapist, and Bodie with her yesterday. And she gave him the assignment. She gave us the assignment to watch the movie Inside Out. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend everyone watch it. It's so good. And so talking about the core memories, and it's opened up a conversation, a whole new, sheds a whole new light on the conversation for Bodie and I to talk about mental health, you know, when he was talking last December about killing himself. And so it just, waking up this morning and talking about it, it's been a miracle for us. So I really recommend that movie.
It's a wonderful movie, and I got the gift of watching it with Kim. And because it's therapy, you know, y'all know it's animated. Is that the one? Yeah. It was wonderful. It's wonderful. I recommend. We need to have that at Shades, by the way, to show. Okay, Cam, I know you're going to run out right now.
I am. You know, I am.
So we're going to continue on mental health topics. And one of the things that my dear friend, all of y'all are friends, but my dear friend thinks she's gotten off where did that girl go? Anyway, where is she? I'm looking for Taylor. Anyway.
Oh, she's gone.
Okay, Taylor recommended a couple of weeks ago that we talk about narcissism. Any of you up to that?
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know much about it.
I am.
That's right. Being a narcissist is beyond being self-centered. I mean, it is. It has master's degrees and it has PhDs of beyond, anything. And I do believe, because I'm an optimist, if people do the work, they too can overcome being narcissistic. And that too is set up in childhood. And I've worked with people that have come in with that diagnosis, and invariably they made a decision along the way in their childhood that they wasn't going to be bullied anymore, and they weren't going to do this anymore, and so they almost became what they decided they wasn't going to be like, and it's hard to live with a narcissist. And so I've got some counselors on here. Y'all join me and next week, and let's talk about narcissism. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your week, and it's so good to see you. I've missed every one of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Thanks, Tennie.
Thank y'all. Bye-bye. Love you.